This is the first time I've ever done a live podcast. All my other podcasts have been recorded. So I just wanted to see what people are saying right now, and then I'll do introductions. And actually, we don't look so bad.
Ah, that looks good.
That looks good, doesn't it? So there we go. Well, maybe if you can put up with that, we will try and sort this out. Thanks, Riley Phoenix. That's so cool. Angelica. So, look, thank you for being patient with us. This is the first time that I've ever gone live on our podcast. And this is Tree. Tree lives about 30 minutes away from me?
Yeah, about that, I think. Yeah.
Okay. We're ready to start.
Awesome.
Well, welcome, Tree.
Well, thanks for having me.
Here's to you. I know it's a bit squeezed. Here we go. This is the meeting of two TikTokers for the very first time. Well, no, for the second time, actually. We've met once before at your place.
Yep.
And we're just going to see if this works and if we can do this again. And I'm hoping that our conversation leads us to places where, people enjoy and learn and we get something from it. Whatever. I can't drink this tea right now. All right. Well, Tree, maybe we ought to tell our story of kind of how we kind of met, because I've actually forgotten. I know it was through TikTok, but what was it?
I think...
Bring it up closer, will you, please?
Okay, yep. I think the way that we initially met was like you saw my live and you liked what I was doing, and that was awesome. And I don't know, I guess like I can't remember who actually started the conversation with, like, I can't really remember how it happened exactly. But I guess we started talking and just sort of took off.
But I don't know, I don't understand, because I mean other people play the drums.
Yeah.
Other people do other things. I don't know what it was about you. I don't know what it was. And excuse me if I've got a runny nose from coming in from outside. But yeah, so I didn't actually know what it was. And so I don't know, maybe it's, something in the ether kind of idea. But it was really just to get some kind of idea of how this began kind of thing.
Well, I think that especially on things like TikTok, there's a certain element of energy that kind of resonates. You watch someone's live and you kind of get absorbed into it and, that kind of thing. And especially if you like what they do, or there's a certain look about them, or a certain way they go about it. I don't know.
Well, that's quite funny, because I didn't even like you.
Fair enough.
No, but there was something about you. I think there was a calmness. And I mean, I'm not necessarily described as a calm individual. Isn't that right? But I think there was something about you, I think, that your whole point of being, in many ways, has been this, you say this, to destroy stress.
Yeah. So the whole initial reason behind the destroying stress thing...
Bring this really close, man. Bring it really close. Really close. Don't be afraid.
Yep.
No, don't get down to it. Bring it up to you.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
You can get as high in the chair as you like, but you want to bring it. If you
Is
bring
that
it
right?
more like that,
Yep.
so that's it.
Okay.
Treat it more phallic.
All right. All right, so this is good.
Yeah, this is
Right.
great, because they can see you. You're not blocking, and I can see your eyes. So, what your mouth does here is perfectly fine.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, so the whole destroy stress thing, so it comes from my own personal experience, really, of, kind of living a dark path, all of that kind of thing. And it's sort of that I want to be able to help people that really do struggle. I don't want to see too much hate going on in this world. And especially, like, when a person's down, it's very common for them to be kicked. It's not very common for a person to walk past and say, okay, here's a hand up, and, let's move on from this point, and, and that's something I really want to change. So in terms of being on TikTok, trying to destroy stress, it covers a very very, very big spectrum of things. You know, there might be people suffering stress at work even, and they finish work and they're like, oh, you know, horrible day. They sit down and they see my life, and with any luck, what I do will kind of like make them sort of a bit more chill mentally, you know, and sort of just help them out. And if it doesn't, well, it doesn't. If it does, it does. You know. But
I thought if I can lock onto one of your comments there, you said it's very common when somebody's down to be kicked.
yeah,
I think there's a law, and I don't know what the law is, but I think there's a law. It's a foundational principle, and you can see it with money. When someone has zero, it's very hard to invest with zero amount of money,
yeah,
right? And when someone has the state of mind where they have zero, zero seems even less than zero. It's like you're being kicked. But if you have $10, well, you've got $10 and you can invest with $10, even if it's food to sustain you for the next day. And there's something about zero and $10, and I'm using financials, that says I'm slightly more attractive because you go, oh, I can do something. Whereas somebody with zero doesn't appear attractive. And I think it's very easy for us as humans to go survival of the weakest, get them out of the way.
yeah,
So I think what you're saying, if I understand you correctly, is that there are people who have zero in a foundational way in terms of how they function around, well, how they function, and also about how their relationship with stress doesn't allow them to feel attractive, doesn't allow them to see themselves,
exactly.
as something that they can invest in. I mean, how do you invest in yourself if you don't think yourself is worth?
Well, see, that's just the thing. I think self-worth is incredibly important, and like I also think that self-worth can come from literally anything. You know, I don't think there's any real meaning to life in a way. I mean, I think we've got to make our own meaning. We've got to make our own justifications for what we do and how we feel. So I think, you know, along those lines, like self-worth, I think really does come down to what a person will actually put into themselves. You know, how much will they make themselves worth, in a sense. You know, there's no real value on a human, you know, or any life for that matter.
I guess there's...
I mean, there's value, but there's...
no, exactly. But
you know
sometimes
what I mean?
you don't feel the intrinsic nature of your own value.
Yeah,
An innate sense of who you are is sometimes distant because in the objective world, we don't see ourselves as valuable as, well, with, you know, you have some attributes that I admire. Part of them is your calmness.
Oh, thank you.
Now, I want to emulate your calmness at certain points during my life. You know, on my lives, probably I don't want to be so calm. But at times I'm talking to my children, I don't want to jump in and rescue them. I want them. I want to stand back and be calm. So you've got something I want to emulate. So if that's the case, if somebody has no intrinsic value or they don't see the value in themselves, there must needs be a way for them to view your value and say empathetically or empathically, wait a minute, he's a human, I'm a human, I can therefore incorporate that value into me.
Oh, that's a really cool way to put it. Yeah, I think that like as a human, we also like influence other people. You know, we have energy. Like this is how I like to view things. So we are 100% pure energy, and we control a physical vessel. Therefore, things like death, things like that, they do not exist. Only death to the vessel exists, but the energy lives on. And I think with that being said, we have the power to influence a room full of people, or just one person in the room, or, you know, we have great capabilities as being a human and being that pure sense of energy. So, you know, I think when you say that, there's another person that has an attribute that you want. Well, I think naturally, with enough time spent in the room with an individual with one of those attributes, the two energies, they collide, they mingle, and then from there creates the subconscious kind of thing going on of that calmness or that attribute that's so desired. And I think that's actually unavoidable. If we walk into a room and we're seeing things we don't like, and we're seeing, bad things take place, then inevitably in our heads we're going to jump to these realizations of, okay, that's wrong. I don't want to see that. I don't want to be a part of that, whatever. And naturally that's going to hit our brains. It's going to make us feel down. It's going to make us feel a certain way. But of course, the opposite happens. We walk into a room and, good things are happening. Well, it's different. The energy just collides and we resonate with it.
Well, it's a very interesting thing. About 25, 26 years ago when I first got married, my wife and I decided not to have a television. And this was way before, obviously, the internet had made a major impact into, our lives. And I remember the reason why she gave for not having a television in the house. She said, you have an opinion and I have an opinion. I think I could just deal with those.
Yeah.
Because there's then several million opinions coming through that screen. And it was nowhere near as it is today. We're bombarded 24 hours. We have information all the time, And now we actually have this idea of switching off your phones, right? Switch off your phone, switch off your electronics, that you don't want to wake them up and whatever. And I know people who actually live with their phones always on. And so when you're talking about walking into a room, I think life has become somewhat more virtual in the rooms in which we walk into.
Definitely.
And so you walk into, for instance, a TikTok room, and I've done this, and there is real venomous animosity between two ideas embodied in two individuals. And I think that is possibly a magnifying glass for what would have been a pub conversation. You and I go down the pub and we go, no, I disagree with you there, man. And yet that the energy that you had and the energy that I had, it was okay. You could be different and I could be different. And I might say, well, I'm not sure if I agree. And you'd be okay with that.
Yeah.
But somehow social media and media generally has become a magnifying glass, a very high-powered magnifying glass of the venomous and visceral nature of disagreement. So coming across you actually is actually a breath of fresh air because here you are. Hey, I'm just here to destroy stress, okay? No worries about anything else. Perhaps I'd like, because I know a little bit about your story, and of course, I'm not sure if anybody else does out there, but you came to this point through some really serious and quite, a lot of people, they just simply destroy. So take us back to where this journey began.
Oh, okay. So hopefully what I'm going to say isn't too much for, the viewers.
There are no trigger warnings. This is life. Get used to it.
Okay, cool. That's good. All right, so basically, I have no objection to explaining anything of my past. I'm a completely open book. So when I was very young, back when I was about 4 years old, I was born in Wellington, but I moved to Christchurch when I was 4, and this happened because my mother was working on the street, to put it politely, and she came across this old man with a lot of money. And she ran away with that guy, left my father in Wellington, and took me to Christchurch. So essentially, she separated me from my father, and then I never got to see him again until, recent years.
Sorry, how old are you now?
I'm 32.
32.
Yeah.
And when you say recent years, what's recent years?
About 5 years.
5 years.
Yeah, about
So that's
that.
a really long time to be separated and not through any of your own volition, you know?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's crazy not having a choice
Right.
in
Yeah.
that matter. But I mean, when someone's only 4 years old, it's, you know, you have to kind of follow suit. So, of course, I went down to Christchurch with my mother. So a little bit of history about my family, just before I go on any further, because otherwise it won't make much sense.
Right.
So my family, they were very rough. I come from a skinhead background, but in saying
You
that,
can't tell.
well, that's awesome. I very much admire that. So I personally hate everything that any gang stands for in that sense. I hate racism. I hate violence. I hate the bullshit. You know. So, of course, coming from that background, I did go through some sort of indoctrination into becoming what they wanted me to be, and I didn't want to be that way. So, you know, I was able to pull myself out very early on, and I was very, very lucky. So anyway, we go to Christchurch, and we move into a series of different flats over the years that we were there. And during that time, because my mother was doing what she was doing and associating with the crowd she was associating with, we had problems with other gangs that were trying to mess with our family. So there's always conflict and always weird rivalries and just.
What kind of gangs? I mean, when you say, you know, we know things over here in New Zealand, like to the mongrel mob. But were there different kind of? I mean, I'm very ignorant in that.
There's different sides to everything. I mean, genuinely, when people speak about kind of, I don't want to say the wrong thing on here, but genuinely, when people speak about skinheads, they tend to speak about them as a whole, but there's a whole list of different.
There's varying degrees of ideological possession.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, you know, I might be a conservative, but I'm not a fascist.
Yeah.
I might be a socialist, right? You know, slightly left of centre, but I'm not a raging communist, Stalinist, Marxist. You know, yeah. So there's varying degrees of how people are. Yeah, sure.
There's categories within everything.
That's right. Yeah.
So I mean, we
in here, by the way, I'm a totalitarian authoritarian. Carry on. Sorry.
That's all right. So naturally we had our conflicts here and there.
Violent conflicts.
Very, very violent.
Oh, gee.
I was very lucky in the sense that most of the abuse that I suffered when I was little was more psychological, which tends to stick with a person for a very long time. I mean, bruises heal, you know. Scars, they stay there for a while, obviously. But psychologically, the effects can linger for a long, long, long time. Which is another reason behind the whole destroy stress thing. You know, it all ties into my past.
Right.
And living from life experience is what I'm trying to, you know, help other people with.
What I don't understand is that you said quite early on that you said you were quite lucky.
Yeah.
In that you managed to escape that indoctrination. And one so young, how do you do that?
It was very difficult. Very difficult. So to get to that point, first I need to probably explain that some of the things I saw when I was young were bad, obviously, but they also helped me realize a lot of things about myself. So when I was 4, we'd just arrived in Christchurch, and maybe we're about a week in being in Christchurch, and something happened to my mother that will always stick with me. So I walked. I was in my cot. I remember this like it was yesterday.
So in your cot,
I was in my cot.
2 to 4, 4 years old.
I had an interesting upbringing in
Right.
that sense. It was kind of neglectful to a
So,
huge
so
degree.
4 years old in a cot.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
all right.
I managed to climb out, and I went to the door because I could hear sounds, weird sounds I just wasn't familiar with at that age, like what's going on. So I open the door and I go into the lounge, and there's a guy sitting there, shaved head, and, just very, very out of his mind. And I asked him, "Where's my mum?"
Is when you say out of his mind,
Like drugs.
drugs, right? Okay.
And he said, "Well, she's fucking." I'm like, what do you mean? Like, I'm 4 years old. I don't know. So I walk into a room and there's a group of people, like a whole group, whole gang. And I mean, I don't need to spell that out.
No, you don't.
So, when I saw that, that's something that,
You were witness to your mother effectively being subjected to incredible abuse
yeah,
by a number of individuals.
yeah,
And what I also find is quite horrifying is that this man speaks to a 4-year-old
exactly.
as if there were no tools in his toolbox to make that,
Yeah, to soften the blows.
to soften the blow of that. And I'm not saying he would have had those tools.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to emphasize what I'm seeing, because often we go, that's dreadful, and it is damn well horrific and dreadful. But what I'm hearing from you in the calm way in which you're expressing this and how you're viewing it, and I know it's a really dreadful place to be, but in memory as well, so I understand that, and I really do. I don't understand the memory, but I understand the difficulty. Is that you're talking about this individual in a very matter-of-fact way, and you must have created the tools in your life that he didn't have.
Yeah.
because you're expressing to me and to the people, whoever's watching, in a way which is, he said, your mother's fucking, and you've got a tool. You've got some tools now, and I can see them in you that say, okay, this is a story. I feel no shame about this. This is just how that set of energy was working at the time.
Exactly.
And I love what you're seeing. And I know, I can see your eyes as you're going there. It's lovely to watch, man. So let's go back to that story. That's affected you.
Yeah, big time.
When you witnessed that, what were your next steps?
So from memory, I didn't know what was going on. I closed the door, and I just all I remember after that is going into because it was a 4-bedroom house. I remember the layout much better than I remember many other things.
Right.
So it was a 4-bedroom house, and I went to one of the back rooms behind my mother's room. And there was a whole bunch of couches. We had like a whole lot of like cushions and things in there that I used to play with when I was a kid and just build huts and stuff.
Right.
And so I did that. I built a little house and I just sat in there. I used to rock back and forth a lot, it was very much
Comforting.
all the time.
Comforting, yeah.
So yeah, I just sat in that little house and did that until the sound stopped, and went up to my mum and gave her a hug, and yeah, that's about all I remember from that point of time. From there's lots of troubling things later on as well, where I'm told that that never happened, or I'm told like that happened differently, or things told by my mum that were said to kind of maybe shelter me a little bit, but she wasn't very good at that.
Basically a mental pacifier.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I mean, I always knew, because I always had those memories. So
Yeah.
every time I was told this kind of thing, it would just piss me off. It would be like, well, hold on a second.
Especially as you're entering into adulthood.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, well, where do these memories come from then? If they, so it turns into this thing of like, okay, what's wrong with me? What problems do I possess mentally? Like, what help do I need?
That's interesting, isn't it? Because the lack of honesty around that, or at least the lack of available information, led you to question you.
Yeah, exactly.
Instead of reality and the facts. These are the facts, here's the reality.
Yeah, it becomes a lot more abusive in a sense, if someone's not told the truth. And it's like, they go on a huge tangent.
It's so funny you should say that, because there's two things that I get offended at, and it's not what would be regular. And I was talking to my sister this morning about it. And the first one is gratitude. Sorry, should I say ingratitude? But the second one is dishonesty.
Yeah.
That one, when someone's dishonest, even if they have perpetrated the most terrible crime against you, denial of the crime.
Yeah, that's something that gets me too. If honesty is not there, then trust isn't there, and if trust isn't there, well, nothing else is either. So it's an ongoing cycle, Yeah.
By the way, I have offended myself quite a bit. Why wasn't I honest? At certain moments in my life. So I'm not saying at all that I'm perfect at this. I mean, I've been dishonest as a protective mechanism for my own shame.
Imagine how boring the most perfect person would be.
God, yes.
Like, they would be they don't do anything wrong. That'd be so boring. They would never learn from their mistakes.
Well, I mean, and this is a bit of a tangent, and I really do want to talk about you, and because I want to get to that place where you've come to now. But I have a bit of a joke with my lovely girlfriend Fiona, and I say when I was on dating applications, there would be people who would say, both men and women, who would say, and I've been told this by women, I don't want any baggage. So I remember writing on one of my online profiles, if you don't have any baggage, you will be the most uninteresting person I've ever dated. So please, come with a little baggage. Yeah. And if you're going through it, maybe that's something worth talking about.
Shit, that's actually awesome.
Well, no, but it's true. The fact is that here you are. I'm having such an amazing discussion. And my empathy is on the pain level, not on the memory level.
Yeah.
My experience was not like that at all.
Yeah.
And I don't feel cheated, by the way. But I feel enlightened by the fact that something so dark has light at the end of it, through it.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think every situation can have its consequences if you let them. But yeah, I mean, there's always a top to the mountain,
So let's go back. So here you are, you've rocked yourself in a position where you feel comforted. You've had this history with your mother where you're discussing some truths that you've been witness to, but the honesty isn't there.
Yeah.
And that obviously goes on right through into adulthood, and that hasn't been resolved.
It's never going to be resolved.
Right.
It's I mean, there's a very, very, very big list of things that happened and took place, and as they do in anyone's life, we all go through struggle. But it's something that will never be resolved. I'll get into that in a minute, I think. But so after the point of, because like the way my memory works, I have schizotypal, which is very difficult to explain, but it's
Schizotypal.
Schizotypal.
So
It's a
Skits
personality disorder.
Right, so skits is the splitting.
Yeah.
But schizotypal, I don't know what the typal is.
So I don't really know what it stands for necessarily, but it basically, the way it affects me is I remember basically everything, but at the same time it's blotchy, you know. So when something traumatic happens, I'll remember that, but then the time frame of which took place is sometimes altered. You know, it's sometimes I can't remember exactly when, or and it kind of works in those time frames of trauma and how bad it was and this kind of thing. So my next kind of memory after the one I just told you about is we moved out of that house where that happened, and we moved to a two-story house. We're still in Christchurch. Can't remember exactly where it is, this house. Once again, though, I remember the layout. I remember everything about the house. And yeah, I mean, there was times when it was snowing outside, middle of winter kind of thing. It happens sometimes in Christchurch. So my mother wouldn't be able to look after me at that point in time because she, you know, drugs, alcohol, all this kind of thing. So I'd then get locked outside in the snow and basically in a nappy.
Right.
You know, and keep in mind, this once again happened when I was 4, and I'm wearing nappies.
Right.
You know, so there's this kind of neglectful situation, you know, and I don't say any of this for like any sub story or any sympathy or anything like that.
It's just factual.
It's just factual, exactly. Yeah. And you know, I think the more people that know this, then maybe this story can help people.
Yeah.
You know, so it's so beyond that, we knew a guy called Keach. Now Keach, as far as I know, has done life in jail and probably still in jail, I'd assume. Possibly his vessel's dead. Who knows? Anyway, Keach came up to me one night. My mother was completely out of it. And he came up and was like, boy, we're going to the beach. And I look at him and, you know, I can't remember what my thought process was. And I don't remember actually going to the beach with him, but I remember being at the beach with Keach. Keach being his last name, I never knew his first name. But he had in his hand a bottle of petrol, you know, one of those big red gas canisters.
Yeah.
And we're walking down the beach.
The 5 litre ones? Or?
Yeah, the big ones. And we see this guy who's sleeping on the sand. And he's just minding his own business. You know, he's just asleep on the sand, nowhere else to be, enjoying life as much as he could, you know. So Keach goes over to him and pours the petrol on him. And, you know, once again, thought process isn't entirely remembered, but I just remember seeing it happen, you know. And he got set ablaze. And it was horrifying. It was absolutely horrifying. The skin on his face, like, peeling, and it was horrible. So I've had a lot of time over the years to think about what happened and kind of tell myself that, you know, not justify it happening or anything, but to tell myself, well, yes, it did happen, and I have to deal with it. So that's kind of why I've become more calm about it. You know, there's been times I've told this story to people and just burst into tears or got really angry and taken it out on myself or others. And I'm at that point now where it's like, well, you know, I can't do anything about it. It happened. It's sad. It fucks with me hugely.
But Jesus, man, I mean, you're witness to a crime, a massive crime.
Yeah.
And not just that, the mutilation, the harm of another, you know, a victim of senseless. Once again, a guy who obviously didn't have any tools for dealing with life.
No, and I mean the thing with Keach is he was doing this stuff regularly.
Right.
You know, it didn't faze him.
Right.
You know, he was
psychotic.
He was very psychotic. I mean, he was the kind of guy who, if you looked at him wrong, he would stab you. It's
Right.
You know, and he wouldn't stop.
I know one person like that, but I won't talk about it.
Yeah. The only reason I can talk about it is because it happened such a long time ago, and I highly doubt he's watching any TikToks or anything like that.
Yeah.
If he is, then well, I'm pretty much fucked. But, you know, yeah, like
I might just delete his name and go, there's a guy and his name's...
yeah, do what you have to do. But
Yeah.
I don't know. It's I'm sure I'm safe anyway. So when that happened, obviously it's something that stuck
I'm just going
with
to check
me.
this for a moment, just in case it's
Oh,
a
yeah.
message about... Okay, no, it's fine.
Yeah.
So I was just checking in case
no,
we had a
it's-
warning from somebody saying that...
Oh yeah, it's too much or something.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Hey, if what
No.
I say-
No. I'm not worried about that. Don't worry about that.
All right.
I mean, anybody could just twitch it off, right?
Yeah.
The,
Cool.
the fact is we're here talking about life, and the only apology I need to make to anybody is the sound.
Yeah.
I apologise for sounding like a robot,
Yeah.
and
I just I don't want to trigger anyone's sort of.
but unfortunately, you can't know everybody's sensibilities.
Yeah,
and,
that's true.
And everybody has to take responsibility for, as far as they can, the fact that this is a conversation between two adults
Yeah.
whose it's not like we don't have sensibilities,
Yeah.
but it's the fact that surely conversation between two adults talking about adult things which have an impact on how we then move forward.
Yeah.
And so on that note,
Yeah.
so move away from Keach and so much what he did, but
Yeah.
let's have a look at you.
Okay.
So what did that bring you to? Where did you go?
So
Here.
Mentally, holy shit. So mentally, I lost it. To put it bluntly, I was a mess. So I've told you two major things out of about maybe 50,
Right.
maybe more, and you know, from all of those struggles, when I was 14. That's when things kind of took place.
Right.
You know, that's when I was 14, that's when my mother just decided, no, you're too much, you're a problem child, you're this and that. And, you know, of course the whole time I'm thinking, well, why am I that way, you know? So anyway, she kicks me out at 14, and, you know, with the idea that I'm going to come crawling back and,
Jesus, man.
you know, beg for whatever forgiveness or whatever. And of course I didn't. You know, I left with a smile on my face.
Right.
You know, I had very little things in my bag. I had no money. Just a pile of needles and a bag of drugs.
Right.
That
What were you taking?
I at the time started on intravenous Ritalin.
Intravenous Ritalin.
Ritalin, yeah.
And what's Ritalin do?
So to most, it's an ADD medication.
Right.
I don't have ADD, so
So you weren't diagnosed,
No.
but you were taking it. So where did you get that from?
I was just buying that off whoever I could.
Right. Okay. So this is black market stuff.
Yeah, basically.
Right.
And I mean, I started when I was 14, and I got introduced to the intravenous drug taking through some friends of mine that I had. Friends introduced by my mother and
Friends.
Friends.
Yeah.
So so on.
Hey, fucking great friend.
Yeah,
Hey,
exactly.
you see this needle? Hey, where's the tourniquet?
Yeah, that's basically it. You know, it's
Right.
like, hey, this is how you do this.
Right.
Like, welcome to the life. You know, I'm like, fuck, okay. So of course, I was homeless at this time. I was very violent, very, very violent. And yeah, I found myself. Some viewers may know this place, Hack Circle in Christchurch. Hack Circle was a place where we all went, you know, where all the outcasts, where all the people mistreated, all of this kind of thing. And it became a beautiful thing. You know, we all came together and it was like a giant family.
Right.
You know, a family that none of us had ever actually experienced. You know, the unbiological binding of us all, it was beautiful.
Binding through trauma.
Exactly.
Right.
You know, and we all
It was
just
kind of like a unorganized Alcoholics Anonymous.
yeah, you could call
Right.
it that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we just all were on the same level, and it was amazing.
But all of you drug takers?
Oh yeah,
Right.
yeah, definitely. We all had our poison.
Right.
You know, all different from one another, and some of us, you know, drank. Some of us take drugs, and so when I started going there, I was an outcast there as well. You know, when I first started going there, I didn't know anyone. I just saw that these people looked awesome. You know, and at the time I had big black trench coat and big black boots, piercings all over my face. And, you know, for a 14-year-old, this was quite the cool thing, you know, and everyone seeing.
How many piercings did you have?
So I had 3 bridge piercings,
Right.
like the one I have now, but
Yeah.
3. I had a nail going through my labret that I put there myself. Just,
Right.
you know, like
Jesus, man.
that.
God,
I,
that just made my legs go.
I had piercings that I did with safety pins, you know, just through the nose, through the ears.
So you were effectively self-harming.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, I had wounds, you know, self-inflicted. And
Right.
I'm never.
And you still...
The scars never heal.
Right.
They're always there, and I'm always reminded
Right.
of those things. And I mean,
You're always reminded of the better person you are today.
that's a beautiful way to put it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's.
I was saying to my sister this morning that I spend my life, as do everybody else, I imagine, trying to create as much distance between that which I didn't like about me to where I am, and I kind of like myself so much more today than I did at that undisclosed point of my life. And look, I was speaking to my friend in the UK, Steve, and he just lost his father. And not that I want to go into that too much, but he was feeling kind of sad, and I said to him, on the other side of grief, which is something that you've been through, especially when you lose an old self, even if you didn't like that old self, even if the old self you didn't, it's being able to recognize the new self and go, oh my God, I can't believe that was me. And I went through that. And I said that the interesting thing about as time passes, there is an old energy. And I find it fascinating, you've mentioned this, but that energy transforms. It mutates. And that's what I love about grief. Because grief isn't just about loss of something you love.
No, it's a teacher.
Yeah, grief is actually the loss of anything. And I said to him, let's just hope that there's a better version of you, even though I don't think there could be a better version of my friend Steve. Let's hope there's a better version of you on the other side of grief. And I think what you've kind of describing there when you go to Hack Circle,
Yeah.
is grieving individuals, self-harming, taking drugs and everything else. So grief takes this form. You're trying to find something new. You go to self-harm. You go to this idea, putting a nail through your lip. Sorry. Could you pass me a big enough hammer, please? So yeah, marvelous. Just some marvelous little vision. But so here you are gathered together. Did you create some new friends that have been with you?
Definitely.
For a long. Do you still have friendships with them?
So I have one friendship from Hick that I don't think will ever die.
Right.
I mean, obviously, a lot of people that I met there were very false,
Right.
a lot of them.
You say false. How do you describe false?
So I describe false as being, this kind of person that portrays himself as being, I'm a friend,
Right.
I've always got your back, I'm always here if you need to talk. And then should the time come where they need to be there, they're not.
Right.
Or like, better yet, it's like one of those things where, oh, I'm fiending for drugs, I'm hanging so bad. And then it's like, well, okay, here you go, I've got some, here you go, have some.
Right.
And then when the tables turn and they've got something, and they're false in the sense of, well, actually, I don't give a fuck if you're feeling like that,
Right.
So that's kind of my understanding of
Right.
back then, a lot of people being false. But there was one person who has stuck by me through all the bullshit. And I consider him a brother,
Right.
a non-biological brother. I know he wouldn't be watching this because he's not on TikTok or anything.
We don't have to mention any names.
But he's awesome.
Right.
He's really cool. And I'm very, very fortunate to have met that person because if I didn't, I would be fucked.
Right.
I would be completely fucked. So...
How long did this process of 14-year-old drug taking? I mean, by the way, look, what other drugs were you taking?
Oh, it's a good question. So I was taking Ritalin was my main. That was the main drug.
Intravenously.
Intravenously. Everything, daily, minutely, secondly.
Right.
It was like...
We're talking about a constant flow of intravenous.
And I had more time with a needle in my arm than I did breathing.
Without it.
Yeah, exactly. It was insane. It was fucking crazy. And so it was Ritalin, BZP, the party pills.
Right,
I'm
really unfamiliar with a lot of them.
So BZP is basically cattle drencher.
Cattle drencher?
Yeah.
So
it's used on farms.
Disinfectant?
Yeah, it's used on farms for that reason. And then some smart guy thought it would be a good idea to put it in a capsule and market it as a legal high. And it was legal until people started dying from it, and it turned kind of nasty. So I was on that very often. Basically, whatever I could find. I smoked a lot of weed, like a hell of a lot of weed. I was smoking about maybe an ounce.
How about things like heroin?
No. I'm allergic to morphine.
Right.
So, however,
that was funny that you would have the consciousness of being allergic to morphine and not taking heroin. Cocaine or?
Cocaine's one of those things that in New Zealand you would be extremely really like it would be so rare to find. I have found what I thought was cocaine, but it wasn't.
Turned out to be Johnson & Johnson talcum powder.
Exactly. Yeah, you know the stuff.
Yes.
It's a good
give you
idea.
Cancer anyway.
Yeah. I see we've both been there before.
Yeah. Well, I keep wondering now. I keep thinking about my parents who just covered their whole house with talcum powder,
So that's one of those things that, I've never tried real cocaine.
Right.
And saying that, I was also into crack and this kind of thing.
Describe crack.
So methamphetamine. So for me, for everyone it's different. For me, the two ways that I consumed it was smoking and injecting. And when I smoked it, it would last a long time. The good stuff would be, I'd be off my fucking head for about 10, 15 hours.
Right.
I'd smoke a lot of it, and the experience behind it is I would never shut up.
Right.
I was just talking and it was frantic, and I would just, I would never.
That's me without it.
Like it was just like that,
Right.
Like I would never cut it out. And everything was interesting. I'd look at this cup and I'd tell you the dynamics and the sequence of how this cup's made, and then I'd look at this thing and be like, whoa, it's just...
Oh my
everything.
God, Trey, man.
Everything was like that.
So you practiced being calm?
I've had to.
Right.
I've had to. Now it's natural.
Right.
I'm naturally calm now, and before I became this way, you wouldn't want to be in this room with me. No one would, because I was fucking crazy, you know. So yeah, that's kind of a brief list of what I was doing, but literally just anything.
And we've gone the 4-year-old, and we kind of had a kind of look very briefly at those terrible things you were witness to, and then we get to you. You've been thrown out of your home. You're with a group of people, both on an energetic level, but also on a user level, and you're 14. So this went on for years.
Yeah, so I was an addict for, about 15 years all up.
Right. And we are definitely saying you were an addict. We're saying this is something you really did. You seek help?
There were times that I tried.
Right.
So even before taking drugs, everybody knew something was up with me, you know.
Right.
And even I knew it from a young age. I wasn't like other people my age,
Right.
you know.
Self-aware.
Yeah, just, you know, there were certain activities that I was just looking at being like, fuck, I wish I could do that. But no, I'm too anxious, or no, I'm too like this or like that. So I never did. And with those kind of activities, it just led me to think that something was just majorly wrong. So I ended up, you know, that was kind of my fuel for getting high and being with myself. And, you know, well, I'm not going to judge me, you know, and or I don't hate me, not like all these other people. And that's how I felt, you know. That's just how I felt at the time. So, lost my train of thought.
We were talking about that you'd sought help.
Oh yeah, right. So before taking the drugs, there were times when I tried to go back home to my mum, and she would be accepting of me being there, but she'd never really grasp the concept of being a parent.
Right.
So there was a time, there was a really distressing time actually before I was 14.
Right.
It kind of led to the whole seeking help side of things. So before I was 14, I don't remember exactly how old I was. My mother got sick of looking after me.
Right.
So she sent me to a boarding house. It actually got shut down for the right reasons. I was very young. I was there. Very, very, very long story short, that was a pedophile ring, and it got shut down due to pedophilia.
Right.
So when that happened, I'm still trying to seek claims for what happened in that place.
Right.
So I won't go into
No.
detail.
That's fine.
But yeah, when that stuff happened, I told my mother. She didn't believe me, and no one else did either. So I kept it to myself up until about 4 or 5, maybe 6 months ago. So yeah, it's still very, you know, that's a hard one.
It's a very fresh.
Yeah, but I feel
revisiting.
I feel like it's empowering, even just saying what I've just said.
Right.
You know.
Well, often when we articulate something in the real world, it then enables us to take it as a tangible set of principles or energies or anything else we have, or a tangible set of facts, and then lay them before.
Yeah, exactly.
We almost need to take those things which are the worst things in our lives, or we consider to be, put them on the altar of sacrifice.
Yeah.
And burn those things, so to speak.
Exactly.
So we get a new angelic phoenix.
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing. I mean, you know, in religious terms, we talk about being born again, don't we? You know, this idea of.
And I think it's a huge similarity, the whole Christian side of being born again and coming out of struggle and coming out on the other end of it. And in a sense, it's the exact same thing. You know, we're relieved of sin.
Right.
I'm not a Christian, but I definitely see that similarity of things.
I there's a beautiful word in French called ensevelissement, and it means to be buried and then to rise again. And in French, they talk about the ensevelissement de Jésus-Christ, the burying and rising, both in terms of baptism and also in the grave.
Wow.
And if you think about the tomb of Jesus, and I'm not talking about this in a religious sense, I'm talking about in a mythological and figurative sense. The tomb of Jesus is darkness. And then the rolling back of the stone by angels.
Wow.
So even if you don't consider it to be a factual story, there was a mythological understanding, at least on a understanding of what we wanted to be. It was there is a yearning within inside the human soul to be the phoenix, to come out of the darkness, out of the burning, and to fly.
That's beautiful.
And so Christ's burial in the tomb, the angels were the ones who rolled back the stone. It wasn't Jesus. And that's often the misunderstanding, this idea that Jesus rolled back the stone. It wasn't.
He essentially needed a helping hand.
He, the Son of God, think about it just completely in a mythological way, in a metaphysical way, not whether it was factual. Of course, I don't think that's factual. But whoever wrote that understood the nature of humans needing to ensevelissement. They needed to be risen from the dead selves. And I think you're describing that now. You're describing ensevelissement, this idea of rising from the dead self.
That's a really nice way to put it.
Well, it's not me.
Well, it makes a lot of sense.
It does,
it's logical.
There's lots of mythologies that actually talk about that kind of rising from or moving yourself away from.
Yeah.
The Buddhists often talk about, new lives. Well, why have a new life? Why? Well, a new life is new opportunity. It's a new you. It's the possession. It's being possessed of grief and then being united with the better you. And I think there's one thing about, religious iconography, religious text that tells us on a human level, not necessarily on a theological level, on a human level, how people described therapy.
Well, yeah. So when that stuff went down, I just told you about, there was this huge thing of obviously I'm not being believed at the time, and this is messing with me real bad.
By your mother or anybody?
Yeah. So a lot of the stress actually led me to think that I was hearing voices and seeing things that weren't there and all of this kind of thing. And of course the drugs and coming down from the drugs didn't help.
Right.
So I was led to believe I was fucking insane. So yeah, my mum thought that too. So I then got put into respite care, which is like, if I was to describe that, it's like a house where young people go, kind of like a rehab.
Yeah.
It's essentially rehab, but like with not as many restrictions, so you can still go out, you can still, but you're there. And then from there I got put through stepping stones, which was like a counsellor, grief counsellor, whatever you call it. And they were horrible. They basically said, well, if you don't take what I'm offering you, then we can't help. And of course at the time they're handing me pills and I'm like, fuck yeah, okay, I'll take them. And then that made me worse.
Right.
And from that point I because that was when I went back to my mother's after about 2 years. And so when that happened I thought, nah, fuck this, I gotta get out. So back to the streets. Then,
16?
Yeah, it was about 16, yeah. And around this time, I started just trying to find places to consume. So I'd spend a lot of my time in Burger King toilets and just shooting up.
That says nothing about Burger King.
I don't discriminate their food or anything. Their toilets are beautiful.
I just spent too long in them. Yeah.
Oh, that's great. So I spent a lot of time there. And then I realized that, shit, I need money.
Right.
I was on the benefit.
Right.
I wasn't paying much. I was the youngest person in New Zealand to get the independent youth benefit. I got that when I was 14.
Right.
So, of course, getting $200 and something a week to a 14-year-old who's on drugs, well, shit, I'm rich. I'm a millionaire, And then, it soon got to the point it just wasn't enough. So one of my friends pointed me in the direction of someone who could help me out. And then I started selling weed.
Right.
And I was making a killing from that. I was making some serious cash.
Can you be willing to talk about how much?
Yeah. So I was getting 2 ounces every 3 days, 28 grams per ounce. When this happened,
that would equate to how much in sales?
So I would sell only 1 ounce. I would smoke the other one,
right.
And that ounce would last me anywhere between 3 days to a week.
Right.
Like it was fucking ridiculous.
I'm interested in the money you were making.
Yes. So from 1 ounce, I was making roughly about 600 to 800.
Right.
And a lot of the time I was paying back ticks. I was paying back debts. Because the way it worked was, okay, I'm going to give you this ounce. You have to go and sell it for me, but you have to give me back the money that it's worth. But the remainder you can keep.
Right.
So it was like that, So I was being left with maybe, about maybe $400.
Right.
Maybe a little bit more.
God, I was just about to say, pretty reasonable.
Yeah. So for my hard effort, I get half basically. That's essentially. And of course, because I was smoking the other ounce and smoking a lot of it, there's this fucking misconception about weed where people say, oh, it doesn't do any damage. Oh, it's just weed. It's nothing. That's false. That's bullshit. So when you smoke a lot of it, it is very addictive, and people try and say it's not. But it's addictive in a different sense. It turns into, I need that.
Right.
I need that thing to be able to relax. I can't relax without it. And then when it's not in the system, it's like, fuck, I'm going crazy.
So I have a couple of friends, quite a few friends who do smoke.
Yeah, to each their own.
Yeah.
To some it helps.
Yeah, so I think, like you say, to each their own, but also I've heard medical experts say, look, if you're treating an illness in some areas, brilliant.
Yeah. If
you're using it recreationally on a weekend, and that's what you're doing just on a weekend, and you're chilling.
That's okay.
That's okay. There are people, however, who it becomes a stimulus towards their depression, and towards bipolar and everything. So there are actually people who are, what's the word? Genetically, it's just not a good idea for them to take it.
Exactly.
And you're one of those individuals that...
very addictive personality,
right.
And doing things I shouldn't have been doing.
Right, yeah.
So,
but you had a lot to hide in terms of emotional stresses. And not to excuse you, but I don't think you were in a position to effectively make any mature decisions.
No, there was no rationality.
That's right.
And thought that I could have possibly possessed.
Right.
It was a mess. So with a lot of this money, even back then, I wanted to help people. Even in my situation of being an addict, running into problems left, right, and centre, because I ripping people off
Right.
as well. You know, I wanted to get higher,
Right.
and if someone had the means for me to do that, well,
Right.
too bad. You know, it was bad. You know, it was.
So you've got drugs, you've been to this hack's place, you've gone back to your mother's. She obviously doesn't want you. You get put into these homes, you get completely pricked by as many needles as you can put into you. You're self-harming. You've been witness to violence, been a receiver of violence, on the other end of abuse. So painting this very colourful picture of pure evil being your life. I say pure evil advisedly,
Yeah.
but it is a high level of malevolent energy. I want to know how you get out of that.
All right. So to get to the point where I get out of it, there's a lot involved.
Right.
You know, so that like what I just told you about lasted a long time.
Right, yeah.
A very long time.
We're not looking at overnight kind of, hey, I'm better now.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, things take time, especially getting better. So around that time, being 16, that same life took me through to maybe I was about. Oh, hold on. Actually, around that time of being 16, because I was busking a lot as well. I was playing music on the street, and I was playing whatever I could get to make money for more drugs. And there was a time I went back to my mother's, and we lived close to the city.
Right.
I'll skim past this part.
Hey, look, we can always come in again. We can do another one in about 3 months. We can do another story, and we can, so because really, I mean, I'm looking at your life at two strands.
Yeah.
We haven't even touched your musicianship,
No.
and so, part one is, wow, this is shit. But part two is there's an underlying narrative of the silent savior. The drum,
Yeah, big time.
the music.
Big time.
And when I say the silent savior, it doesn't come into fruition until you're ready to open the door.
Exactly. When I was ready to embark on that, that's when it came.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean the part I'll skim past is I went back to my mother's and it was shit, and we all consumed a lot of drugs.
Right. And your mother was still consuming.
Yeah, everyone was. My mum.
What's she like today? Okay. Yeah. And that probably you're sick to the pit of your stomach.
Yeah, I mean some people don't recover.
Right. And how old is she?
She's
probably my age, isn't she?
I think she's about 54, 55 or something.
Right. Okay.
I've lost track of
Right.
her age
Right.
just simply because I don't care.
Okay. No.
And that's putting it nicely.
But that's a very important thing for you to do. And I want to make sure that people understand this, because I've had to separate myself from a member of my family, not because I don't love him. Absolutely, I love him.
Yeah.
But there is no safety in the relationship for me, for my family, and for other parts of the family. So sometimes, just in the same way as you can have an activity that you love, there has to be a point where you say, well, the thing that I am loving isn't doing me any good.
Yeah.
And, you can love your mother, and you can love your mother as your mother, but you may hate her lifestyle. You may hate everything that has possessed her.
And honestly, it goes beyond anything ever. Like, it goes beyond anything anyone would actually comprehend.
Right.
I think.
Okay.
It's
Well, it is personal to you.
It is. I mean, unless a person has lived the life, I mean, I can explain.
Yeah.
But the feeling, it's like explaining. I can't properly explain how methamphetamine affected me.
Right.
Because simply you haven't been there. So, I mean, not that I know of. So
No, I haven't.
yeah, so to
My
understand it,
my introduction to drugs was quite late in life, and I've only been under the influence twice,
yeah,
and I was a pathetic individual. I don't think I remember everybody else in the studio when I was 14 years old and I was recording this song. They were all smoking black,
wow,
and there's about 11. It was an 11-piece band, and it was including my brother and all these other people. And I was in the studio, and the engineer was smoking as well. And I had this thing called the Korg Delta, which could change the oscillation between octaves. And so I kept my hand in one place and just changed the octaves with the other hand. So it made it sound like the solo was going do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do. But really, it's fucking awful. Because I was doing this. And there was this guy, and I won't say his name. I call him C. And C was this really special, fabulous guitarist. And he was sitting on his amp with his beautiful Fender Strat or whatever it was. And he was going, "Charlie, wicked, man. Charlie's wicked." Like this. And as I was doing this, and when I listened back to the recording, shit. And everybody else, apart from me, I wasn't smoking. I was 14. Nobody else would give me any weed, would they? I mean, and I didn't want any. But I just remember playing this piece and thinking, wow, yeah, I'm amazing. No, I wasn't. So anyway, that's my limited amount of drugs. I don't really do much, apart from burning the back of my throat with a cigarette, but there you go.
And it's amazing how much these things alter.
They alter reality,
like
the perception
our
of reality.
perception is crazy and shit. Honestly, it's unbelievable. Yeah. So where was I?
So you were talking about your feelings towards your mother and how difficult that was.
Yeah. So I mean.
By the way, we've had a couple of people say thank you so much.
Oh well.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
So that's really nice. Really nice.
So to kind of put things in perspective, I know some will understand this, some may not, but the relationship I have with my family is just non-existent.
Right.
And the way that I truly feel about my mother or anyone else on my mother's side in the family is gone.
Right.
There's no emotion. And if something were to happen, I'm not going to be there.
Right.
I'm comfortable with that.
Yeah.
I'm okay with that.
Because the death has happened already.
Well, yeah, that happened a long time ago.
That's right.
And yeah, I mean, it's just hard.
Yeah.
So why would I bother?
Yeah.
So
you want to open up that grave and examine the body.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you really?
Well, it'd be interesting.
Well, yes, but
but yeah, you know.
Yes, that's right. It would be,
So so that was the same, 16 to 18. Those few years they were like that. When I was 18, something amazing happened, where I was busking, and this person came across the street, and she was German. This German girl, and she sat next to me and started drawing a picture, and I was ignoring her because I was really high and I didn't really want to socialize.
What were you playing?
At that time, I was actually playing a roasting dish. So I had put a dent in the side of a roasting dish, right. And it gave this resonance that actually was fucking incredible.
Can I just say that? Tree, you played a roasting dish.
I did.
Okay. I just think that is actually so. It's over there. It's so way out there. What instrument are you playing?
Oh, roasting dish.
Roasting dish. Last night's. The thing they cooked with last night. I'm playing that. I'm playing. If you said pots and pans, it would be one thing.
Yeah.
But the fact that you described it with a dent in the roasting dish, I think that's a brilliant picture.
Thank you. So it was one of the old ones with the rings,
Right.
big
Yeah.
ones from the 60s. And it was awesome. It gave such a good fucking sound. It
Just-
was unbelievable.
Do you still have that?
No, I got very angry and I threw it at someone. So
As you do.
as you do, yeah. So that happened a long time ago.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm sitting there. I'm homeless at the time.
Homeless?
Yep.
I thought you said you were harmless.
Oh no, I was homeless.
Yeah.
In my backpack, I had a sleeping bag. I had just made $20 from busking. I was just about to buy some weed, and this German girl sits down, draws this picture, and I'm not engaging in anything, conversation-wise or anything. And I start to, because first I'm just thinking about getting high. Like, fuck, I'm gonna go and get some weed, and because when you sell the stuff, sometimes you run out, and sometimes it's very difficult to find more. So that's the state that I was in at that
Right.
point. I had crumbs in my bag, but it wasn't enough. It was bullshit. So after a while, I looked over at what she was drawing, and it was the scenery of where we were sitting, the buildings, the people, the cars, the traffic lights. Everything was perfect. It was in that similar style,
Right.
but it was all perfect.
Right.
The layout of everything. And that kind of hit me really hard. I was like, well, shit, okay. This tells me this person has empathy. This person has an understanding of where we're sitting and what we're actually doing here.
You're
know?
experiencing a synergistic, symbiotic awareness.
Exactly.
Right. It's very rare to have that. I mean, I've experienced it in music,
Yeah.
but to have it in two people with completely altered states in some way.
Exactly.
Yeah.
To have it in actual life. I've had it in music many times.
Yeah.
But that's almost on just a completely different frequency altogether. So when that happened, we got to know each other. Eventually she went back to Germany and she sent me an email. That's where it gets interesting. She sent me an email, saying get a passport. And already I'm starting to think, get a passport? How the fuck? Okay. So I went off and I managed to use a friend's address and all of this kind of thing and got a passport. And it came to that address a wee while later. I was like, wow, shit, I've got a passport now. Well, that's cool. So I replied to the email, okay, got a passport. How's it going? What are you up to? And then she sends one back saying, okay, open this file. I open this file and it's an e-ticket. And I'm looking at it. I'm like, no, this can't be fucking real. Like this, what the hell? Honestly, who would do this for me?
What year was this roughly?
This was when I was about 18. So
2003, something like that?
I'm really, really bad at working out the years of things.
So you're what, 30
I'm
now?
32.
32. Yeah. So if you're 32, go back about, you're 18. So what are we looking at? I'm very bad at that. So was it 2004, 2005, something like that? That's 15. About 12 to 15 years ago.
Yeah, fuck. Yeah, it was about that.
Yeah.
Fuck, long time.
Yeah.
Sometimes it feels like just a few years.
Well, yeah, I mean, look, I completely understand that. So you get this e-ticket. This is kind of exciting.
Yeah, and I'm standing there just, because I'm checking it on my phone, the emails. I'm just looking like, wait, hold on. I can't even remember if it was on a phone or not. Anyway, I'm looking at the emails and I'm like, fuck, okay, this can't be real. So I put it down as being bullshit. I write it off, this bullshit, because up until this point, no one has ever...
No one in life can be that altruistic.
Yeah, like no one has ever shown me kindness like this up until this point. So I'm like, whoa, shit, okay. And then I think, hold on a second, what if this is fucking real and I can get out of New Zealand for free? Like, I better check this shit. So I go to the airport, which in Christchurch, to get to the airport from the city, It's quite a way.
It is.
You know, it's quite a mission to get there if you don't have any way of. You know, I had $20, but I was thinking if this is real, I don't want to spend a cent.
Right.
You know, so I hitched. I managed to hitch a ride to the airport, and I get there. I go up to the thing, and I say, "Okay, is this real?" Keep in mind, I'm smelling fucking terrible. I got drugs coming out of my pores. I'm sweating everywhere. I had dreadlocks that were very, very long, and they were smelly, and they were rotting, and they had nits in them, and they were fucking gross, you know, and I looked cool, but I didn't smell very cool, you know, and it was very easy to spot that I was an addict. It had scabs all over my face, and it was a mess. Anyway, she says, she looks at me, she's like, "Yes, your plane's boarding at gate blah 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 blah." What? Fuck, okay. Alright, cool. So I go to the gate and I look around. Okay, I get on the plane. I'm thinking, okay, what the fuck is happening? And I sit down and the plane takes off.
And you fly.
And I fly. And then
to Germany.
Yes, and then because I've been there twice, both for free. The first time I stopped at Shanghai, a few other places. I can't entirely remember the stop-off points, but I get to Shanghai the first time, and I get really, really hungry, you know, from being on the plane. And they, on international flights, I don't know if they still do this, but they used to give a lot of alcohol.
Right.
It was all free, so I was saying this as like, oh, fuck, vodka, ooh, whiskey, and I don't drink usually, so, you know, I didn't have drugs, so alcohol's the next best thing. So I got absolutely fucking slaughtered on the plane. Like, I got immobile, you know, I was fucked. So we stop in Shanghai, I get off the plane, I'm like, fuck, I'm really hungry, so I have this $20, and I go to the money exchange. I don't know anything about currency, you know, and I get it exchanged, and I get like fucking like 1,000 yen or something, or whatever it was. It's 1,000 something. It still equates to $20, you know. And I'm thinking, fuck, I'm rich. Oh my god, fuck, this is amazing. And then I go to McDonald's, and I want to get a cheeseburger. And it tasted like shit, by the way. Honestly, it was the worst burger. And before I bought it, though, I looked at the prices, and it was like 2,000, 1,000. Everything was in the thousands.
Right.
And I'm thinking, fuck, I'm not that rich. Shit. So I get this cheeseburger, and I'm thinking, fuck, that was all my money spent, and it was horrible. And I'm not even fucking full. I'm still hungry, you know. So I'm walking around. And I'm waiting for the next flight to take me to the next step, you know. And I sit there, and this is quite a funny memory for me. This lady, this old lady, she comes up to me, caked in makeup all over her face, and she sits next to me, and she says to me, "If you want a shower, you can come to my house and you can have a shower." And I'm sitting there like, oh no, I'm sorry, I'm alright, thank you anyway. A very nice offer, but no, I'm alright. Then she's like, oh, I can get you a job. And you know, imagine she's speaking in her Chinese accent, and you know, she's coming across very hard to understand and very demanding.
Right.
I'm like, oh, what kind of job? Just curious. She's like, oh, you can become a translator. I'm like, oh yeah, no, I'm alright. Like, you know, any job I would have turned down anyway from her, from anyone else at the time. So she kind of lost it in a sense, pulled out all this paperwork. It was all photocopied paperwork, just obvious bullshit, you know. And she's handing it to me. And she's like, oh, you can go to the embassy in New Zealand and fucking blah. I told them my name and rah, rah. Oh, yeah, okay, I'm not going to do that. And I was smoking cigarettes at the time too, so they have smokers' rooms in the Shanghai airport. So I go to one of them, I'm having a ciggy, kind of, you know, I'm shaking a little bit with joring and shit. I'm starting to get a bit angry and just, you know, kind of like, oh man, fuck this. Like, And I come out of there, and she's waiting for me at the door on the outside of the smoker's room. She's like, "Oh, come with me, come with me. Oh, I can show you where I live." I'm like, "Nah, man, I'm alright. I have to stay in the fucking airport. Like, just fuck off." And she didn't leave me alone. And I had to go and talk to an officer. And it turned out she was a scammer, a known scammer in the airport. And the officers knew who she was. But I didn't go and complain about her. I found an outlet. And, oh, okay, I wonder if this will work. And I went and asked him for the time. And she thought I was, dobbing her in.
Right.
And then she left. I thought it was fucking hilarious. So anyway, I get to Germany. This point, no money in my pocket. Sleeping bag inside my backpack. Coming down from drugs. And Hannah was her name, the person I was meeting there. And long story short, we were together, all the stuff. I wasn't a nice person. I was an asshole. And forever...
She liked you?
She liked me. I liked her, but I was an asshole.
Right.
And forever I'm going to regret how I treated people back in the day. Because I treated everyone like shit.
Right.
And it didn't have a good outcome on me.
Right.
And how could it? So she sent me to Perth after an argument. And what she intended to do was send me anywhere in the world for a break, to get clean, to sort my life out, and then come back to Germany.
Right.
But I didn't know this. And she had an inheritance from her grandparents, a huge sum of money. So it was nothing to her. She could just do this,
Right.
So I was thinking, okay, well, where's close to New Zealand that I've never been?
Right.
Let's go to Australia. Fuck it, why not? And I thought she was trying to get rid of me. But I could have said Russia, I could have said Spain, I could have said anywhere, and it would have worked out in some way. But I'm glad it didn't work out as well. Anyway, so I'm in Perth, in Australia, and I'm greeted. I get off the plane, and this was amazing. I get off the plane, I'm walking around, I'm kind of stumbly and shit. I'm like, oh my god, what the fuck just happened? Like the last few months, holy shit, what the fuck? So I'm walking around, and there was a girl who went by the name of Sparkle Chan, and Sparkle Chan was awesome. I never knew her real name, but she came up to me. She could see I was struggling, and she said to me, "I can introduce you to some people. Like, come with me." Not word for word, but that's what she kind of meant. So I was like, "Oh, okay." So I went with her, and she took me to a group of street people.
Right.
That some of these people were kids. Some of them were like 8 years old.
Uh-huh.
Some of them were 40 years old, and it was just like Hack all over again.
Right.
It was like the new Hack in a sense, but in a different country. And Perth was, when I was there at least, extremely rough.
Right.
It was extremely volatile, especially being homeless. So I saw people get shot, get stabbed, get raped. Fucking
Jesus.
The works. It was absolutely... It was incredible, being there. But, I've become very desensitized to a lot of things. If something were to happen in front of me, well, it happened, I guess.
Right.
I'm not going to be in tears about it. I'm going to hate it, but so anyway, we go around trying to find places to sleep and all this kind of thing, and we come to this car park, and we took over that car park. That was ours, and we knew security and everything. They used to lock us in at night so no one could come in, no cops or anything, and we'd just party every night, and it was amazing. And then while I was over there, there was this 8-year-old kid who didn't want to go back to his parents because they were very abusive. So I took him in.
Right.
I was like, fuck this.
You became the surrogate father.
Exactly. And I was like, fuck this. I'm not going to let anything happen to this kid. I've been there. I know what that's like.
Your abandonment, if so to speak, as a child led you to be the surrogate father of an 8-year-old who was being somewhat abusively abandoned.
Yeah.
Go. So here we are. Now, look, I just want to make sure that we're doing really well for time. And so, sorry about that, everybody. You can hear me. Let me just do a couple of things first of all. One of the first things I wanted to say is, look, I know the sound is a little bit hard from my point of view, but tree sounds pretty good in my ears, and I just wanted to say. So if you have any questions, we're not going to always look at our phones, but if you do have any questions, now we started this podcast around 11:45, that kind of time. And we're now at 1:21, so at 1:45 it will be 2 hours. And I'm really interested in getting through as much stuff as I can, especially about your story. But I wondered if we could do a couple of things, because I want to just pop your bag down, just so you've got. But what I wanted to do something, because I'm getting this story in my mind of, and there's so much detail, and I want to do this again. We can revisit this like every 6 months. We can revisit the life of Tree.
Awesome. Yeah.
Because, I've seen loads of podcasts from Lex Friedman and Eric Weinstein and Andy Schultz, and just lots of these, everything from the comedians all the way through to the scientists. And then there's always one or two regulars that they have on. They're talking about what they're doing today.
Yeah.
So I see this as a foundational podcast, not just for me, but for you, in the sense that, well, in 6 months to a year, Tree comes back in and says, well, actually, I was playing this thing, and then suddenly, wow, somebody sent me $3 million. So, so this is really a foundation. And I'm so sorry about the camera here, everybody. That I know you're seeing Tree mainly, which is really what's most important, but I'm not really... It's very narrow, isn't it? But if we get any closer, our legs will be making love. Okay, so I want to do something now, because I want to kind of bookend this, because we've got that about 25 minutes, roughly.
Yeah.
You've had trauma. You've been exposed to some of the most extreme behaviours I think I've ever spoken to anybody about.
Oh, well.
I mean, I don't think anybody out there would disagree with that idea that the extreme. I mean, there's very few people that I know firsthand who have been exposed to. I know there's been all kinds of abuse around the world and what have you, of various people, but that you've been very, very clear. You're witness to. At the very worst, at the very least, manslaughter, if not attempted murder. You need to bring us into some happiness.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
So I want to do something here. I want to put the Perth experience on hold for a moment.
Of course.
With one exception. I want to ask you a question.
Yeah.
Was looking after that young fellow at 8 years old a significant catalyst in your repair?
To a point.
To a point.
I was still an addict in Perth. But, some of the things I had to get him through were pretty, because he was an addict too. He was 8.
Right.
So I was never supporting his addiction, because I thought it was fucking ridiculous.
Right, isn't that funny?
Yeah, he definitely tried to support mine though.
Right, I see.
It was hard, because I could never accept anything from him.
No.
As a child, and it was wrong to
it was
accept.
It's almost like, it would be almost like a pedophiliac drug addiction.
Almost, yeah.
Like
it's yeah. I mean, obviously, it would never get to that point. But
it would it's totally not a sexual thing, but the feeding of having drugs from a child is like that same kind of idea. You had some kind of moral sensitivity.
Yeah, well, I mean, I wanted to look after him.
Right.
I didn't want to supply
or add to his abuse.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But
so
I mean,
this child, I mean, do you know him today?
No.
Okay.
So I don't know what happened to him.
How long did that relationship last?
So I was in Perth for about maybe 3 or 4 months.
Right.
Maybe longer. Don't really remember.
How did you have the money to get back over to New Zealand?
I was distraught about what happened in Germany.
Right.
You know, I just had a really hard time getting over it.
Right.
So I tried to jump in front of a train.
I'm assuming you weren't trying to catch the number 48 or something.
Well, I mean, I missed the train. I was lucky to miss the train, number 48.
Right.
Yeah, so I jumped too far. And
you jumped too far?
Too far.
Damn, you got some legs on you, brother.
So I missed by about this much.
Jesus.
Yeah. And when I did, the entire train was going behind me, you know, very, very close, and I was shitting myself. So what the fuck am I trying to do to myself? Why am I trying to do this? What the fuck? So from there, I realised my errors, and I admitted myself to Royal Perth Hospital. When I did that, I was trying to get clean.
Right.
You know, I was at the point where I was like, oh my God, man, fuck this. So I'm in the hospital, and they're saying a very similar thing that I've heard many times before from professionals.
Right.
If you don't take this, we can't help you.
Right.
Handful of benzodiazepine. So I'm
wonderful.
like, of course I'll take them.
Yeah.
Well, can you help me now? You know, like, I'm high as shit. Can you help me, buddy?
I mean, the come down from benzodiazepine is, you know, because you're going to get hallucinogenics.
Yeah. It's bad.
It's dreadful.
It's bad. You know, it's something you don't recover from very easily.
No, it can take some time.
Yeah, so long story short, they very hesitantly paid for my ticket to come back. And then I was in Auckland, homeless in Auckland when I came back. And keep in mind, I should have said this before, my whole reason of coming to Wellington from Christchurch, right? My father was a millionaire. The Mad Butcher is one of my great uncles. My family, part of my family is famous and well known and rich, and here I am, and here my mother is, and everyone else on that side is fucking black sheep. So anyway, my father moved to America, Wichita, Kansas. It is Wichita, Kansas. Anyway, he was over there. He's a computer genius. He helped to break down tornadoes and inherited a lot of money through IBM.
Right.
So he came back from America. I caught wind of this. I was like, holy shit, I'm going to see my dad. Like, fuck this. That's what I'm going to do. And that was the whole reason coming to Wellington. And he was an arsehole. And I regret even trying to make contact with him. Because I was an addict when I went to see him.
Right.
And of course he had the wrong opinion about me, you know, tried to force me into a rehab and all this kind of thing. And at the time I'm thinking, man, what the fuck are you doing?
Right.
But now it's like, oh man, shit, I'm sorry. Like I should have, you know, and he was ignoring me the whole time. And I know why now, but back then I didn't. So of course I've tried to make contact again. And I've tried to send messages on Instagram and all of this kind of thing saying, look, I'm a different person. In fact, I'm married now. I'm not on drugs anymore. You know, I'm different, and there's no response. So, but anyway, that's why I came to Wellington, and just to put that out there. Yeah.
So tell me about this. So when you finally came to the point where drugs didn't play a part in your life. Obviously, you had these thoughts. You were really self-aware in spite of all that you had abused yourself with.
Yeah, I mean, I've been clean for 2 years.
Right.
Like properly clean.
Properly
for 2
clean.
years.
But
yeah.
there was steps. I mean, so for instance, if I was listening to this from the outside, there have been moments that have been a catalyst, like Hannah showing you love, acceptance. Even at that point where you saw her symbiotic energy in art and capturing the objective world as you felt it and saw it, buying you that ticket, the trip to Germany, your idea of fathering or mentoring an 8-year-old in spite of your own difficulties. So all along the way, I can, at the very least, I'm romanticizing, if you see what I mean, a pathway of betterment.
Yeah.
The reaching out to your father.
Yeah.
Big deal. You know, that's a big deal. So there's a level of consciousness there that I think you were blessed with, and I say blessed advisedly. I think, you know, if you want to say just by chance or luck or whatever, it doesn't bother me how we describe that. So what was it that, okay, you've had all this, what was that one thing that just went,
It just tipped it.
It just tipped it in the favor of doing the fucking work?
So, I guess the way my father was towards him and what happened after that, just, you know, because I was at the point of, I mean, I was an addict, but I was at the point of realizing I shouldn't be like this.
Right.
You know, something needs to change. So that's what tipped it for me again, you know. It was being ignored by my father that I hadn't seen since I was 4 years old.
Right.
You know, it was quite hard. And kind of being rejected, you know. So in the end, he ended up dropping me off. You know, he was like, no, I don't want you here, you know, blah, 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 all the rest of it. So he dropped me off near my mother's house at the time. So, of course, you know, because I called her from my father's. I was like, look, he's an asshole, you know, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing, you know, all this kind of thing. This is
She wasn't exactly the woman that you wanted to find a life strategy from.
No, but I didn't know anyone else. This is before I went to Germany,
right?
You know, so I go back to her place. She was living not very far away at the time, and she was in a very abusive relationship. Not that any of her relationships weren't abusive, but it was a very nasty one. And my cousin actually came because I had nowhere to go, and I couldn't stay with her because it just wouldn't have worked. My cousin came and took me to a friend of his, and that just went terribly.
Right.
It's like another junkie situation, and only this time he was an animal abuser. Jeez. And I actually had a little dog. When I came to Wellington, I had a little dog, and he was awesome. Most beautiful, fluffy little thing.
You own a cat now, don't you?
I own a cat, yes. And
you've always been an animal lover?
Big time.
Right.
Yeah, animals are far better friends than a lot of people have known. But yeah, so my dog got parvovirus in the house that I got taken to, and he died.
Right.
And it was excruciating for me. Took me a long time to recover. And of course, drugs were in play and everything, and you know, eventually just had to deal with it. That is what it is. And then moving on from that point, because things were relatively the same, you know, I was back on the streets and all that shit, and in and out of like strange living situations, and just all very similar. I then thought, fuck this, I'm sick of people, I'm sick of being treated like shit. So I got a tent and I ran to the trees, and I lived in the forest for about a year and a half.
How old?
At this point, so this is after the shit went down with my father. This is actually after Germany as well. You know, my memories are all blotchy.
After Perth.
Yeah.
So you're living in New Zealand.
Yeah.
I'm kind of calculating this now because you had the 14-year-old, the 16-year-old. There was an 18-year-old you. And so what are we looking at? Early 20s?
Yeah, I guess I was about 20-something, you know. So I'm in the trees, getting horribly fucking high, and at this point I wasn't busking because busking involved energy, and energy involved work.
Right.
And I was fucking lazy,
Right.
you know, and I was high. So I had a sign, and it said exactly this: struggling with the cost of living. Struggling with the cost of food and living. Anything helps. Thank you. And so, of course, people were donating for that. And everyone was like, oh, get a job, you bum, and fucking, you know, all the rest of it.
Yeah.
People being people. And
right for the wrong reasons.
Yeah. You know, and I kept trying to explain to people, I don't have a fucking choice. No one's going to employ this.
Right.
You know, it's a fucking mess. And I never realized it at the time, but only I could change.
Right.
You know, and I knew that well and truly after the fact.
That's a really interesting discovery, actually.
Yeah.
Because in our society today, we have what's known, I think, as in blame mentality. You know, it's your fault that I am this way.
Yeah. Yeah. And for a long time, I had that towards my mother as well. And
by the way, that is factual.
Yeah. I mean, of course, when I was young, when I was really young and not in control, definitely it was her fault. But there, of course, there's a time when I got old enough to kind of take the right steps, and I should have back then.
Yeah, but you see, I mean, there's also a level of forgiveness and acceptance you have to have for yourself, isn't there?
Of course.
That you don't have the tools.
Yeah.
But for some bizarre hand of God, universe reason, you had a really strange awareness for an addictive.
Yeah.
You know, like so. This is what I'm marveling at. That it's insane that you. I mean, even your awareness after trying to jump in front of a train. What the hell am I doing? And you missed it as much. I mean, there's a bit of comedy in there. It's almost like Dumber and Dumber, isn't it? Oh, I didn't jump in the train in front of it. Is there a question there?
Oh, no, it's, my phone's really, really laggy, so if anyone actually does have a question, it's not going to come on my phone as quick as it's meant to, I guess.
Well, we've just got a love heart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, I think I have to, because I'm on data at the moment.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
It's kind of chewing me up.
I could give you the password, but I'll do that afterwards. So when you next come here, we'll do it. We'll go from there. All right. Well, look, we have got. Let's just have a look because I would love to speak to you. We got about 7 minutes or so. Hold on. Let's have a look. 10 minutes before it comes up to 2 hours. 7 minutes. 7 minutes. That's right. It's a healing heart. Oh, thank you, Artist April.
That's nice.
That's lovely. Artist April, I don't know if I follow you, but...
She's awesome. She jumps on my lap sometimes.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Thank you so much. And who else is this other individual? Super Grandma, 1230. Hey, she's... I love that. Her description is, I am old. Right, okay. Hopefully you're following me and Tree, and we're going to have more of these discussions. So look, I'm going to do a part 2 with you.
Yeah.
But we're going to skip everything and get your drum out. Because there's some people who have not experienced Tree's drum. And there's also another thing. I know your real name.
You do.
So Tree, whatever happened, you've got that musical narrative that we haven't even touched upon really other than the chicken, what is it called?
The roasting dish.
The roasting dish. I was going to say chicken dish.
Yeah, I've kind of left out a huge
chunk. And that's why we need to revisit this because there's nothing wrong with 3 or 4 podcasts in the future going, hey, do you know what? We saw a tree. We learned about all this fucking great, this really difficult place, horrific. But when people see you, they don't see that tree.
No, of course not. There's, I'm only recently coming out about a lot of things,
right?
You know? I've talked to a lot of people over the years, and it's another reason why I can very calmly tell you what I've told you.
Yeah.
But, there's a lot that, the tree that people see is the tree that will solely engage with the people watching, say on live or something, And yes, I am myself. I'm always myself.
Yeah.
But if anyone were to ask me any question, anything personal, yes, I'm going to answer it. But no, it's not going to be in detail, obviously. And no, it's not going to be dragged out. It's going to be very short and very simple. So, they see a very shut-off tree. They don't see unplugged tree, in a sense.
Yeah.
Know?
So I guess really, look, when I was with my psychotherapist, he talked about the manifestation of personas. And that, I have a teaching persona, I have a performing persona, I have the father persona. But each one has a need to be integrated with truth. So if you've got anger or trauma, anger and trauma must occupy a space within the joyful. Yeah. Anger and trauma must occupy
the dark without the light.
That's right. Yeah. And so even within, me the teacher, I'm not me the teacher, but I'm also me the teacher.
Yeah.
And I'm also me the teacher. Yeah. So they're all real parts of you. But the realness has to be measured by how effective you are as a human.
Yeah.
Because as Tree, the therapist, the musical therapist, Tree would be less effective. I'm talking about you in the third person here.
Yeah,
but
I
Tree,
know what you mean.
Yeah, Tree would be less effective if he unpacked everything with people who are busily unpacking.
Yeah, true.
So, I got a cramp in my leg just here.
It's actually a really good way to put it. I feel like there has definitely been situations where people have asked me for help and, I've done as good of a job as I can, and then something triggers me.
Right.
And then I can't get off the topic of, I can relate to that.
Right.
Oh man, I fully understand. Like, fuck.
That takes a lot of practice.
Yeah, it's hard, and then the person on the receiving end's thinking, well, okay, good for you.
Well, yes, because for those of you who don't know, I did 4 years of seminary. I'm actually a trained theologian, but I'm no longer religiously affiliated. But it doesn't mean to say that I don't have value from religious text. And one of the things that Christ said was, don't throw your pearls before swine.
Wow.
So if you have pearls, the swine, the pig, they're going to roll around in muck. They don't value pearls. So sometimes you and I are the swine, and sometimes we're delivering pearls.
Wow.
But we alter our states. And our practice in life is to become people who, when somebody throws pearls, we look at them and say, I value your pearls. So in other words, if you're telling somebody good news, the worst thing that they can go is, oh, well, you think that's good, listen to mine. So that's an example of you throwing your pearls before swine, even in a positive sense.
Yeah.
And the other half of that is somebody who thinks they're showing empathy, which is you say, oh, yes, I was abused by Ba. Oh, me too. I was abused.
No, it's easy to mistake them sometimes, and I've definitely made that mistake sometimes.
And I have too. I mean, look, when I remember in my 20s, I remember saying to my friend Paul, well, you think that's good? Oh, well. This and look, and I'm going to tell you because, my challenges in life have been verbosity and arrogance. And I know I suffer with them today to a far lesser degree. Yes, I know that's hard to believe. But I've measured them a little bit. So one of the things you're describing really is our narcissistic tendency to self-focus to the detriment of someone else. But that's only because the tools are being developed. And there's such a thing called positive narcissism. And positive narcissism was when you have to focus on yourself. You have to do it with detriment to everything else that you value. And so when you, I'm going to get that thing deleted, that keep on that comes up there. So you're actually describing what is to some degree a very healthy process in discovering you and discovering what it means to be you. I want to set up another time, but we aren't going before you play your damn drum.
Yep.
So
Understand.
Tree will give you a little bit of how you came to be whilst you're unpacking.
All right. So with this, should that be...
Oh, no. Just talk to people about it. Pass me your cup of tea so nothing gets smashed. And so when I saw Tree was playing not this drum, but playing another one.
Yeah. So I was playing the smaller steel drum. That got actually knocked out of tune.
Did it?
Yeah.
I didn't know that could happen.
I just have to grab something.
Sure. Is it out of the bag?
Oh yeah, where is...
Excuse me.
It's because the ring, so I have to wear these.
Ah, right. Is that your wedding ring?
Yeah.
Oh.
Oh yeah, I never actually explained that. The way that I got married. It's a real quick story.
Go on.
All right. So the way that I got married in the end was me and my wife. We were both homeless, and we were sitting next to each other begging on the street. And I looked over at her and I said, "Hey, want to get married?" And she said, "Yeah, sure." And then we got married in an emergency housing place, and that was 2 years ago.
That is just one of the most incredibly amazing stories. And you were right, it was short.
Yeah.
But I mean, were you falling in love along this?
Oh, of course. I mean,
Well, you say of course. I don't know. It might have been almost like you know how sometimes
well, we were together for only about 2 months,
right.
and then we decided that and it was, yeah, I don't regret it. It was awesome.
Well, I hope you don't bloody regret it. If she listens to this, she'd be worried if you did. Okay, so talk us through a little bit about the drum and
Right, so,
your strategy also in regards to, because we've had history of you and, wow, there's darkness, but now we're bringing light through this other narrative.
There's, the light at the end of the tunnel, right? So perception is key when finding that light at the end of the tunnel. That's what I think. And everybody has an outlet. Everybody can find that light. And for me, it was this. It was a roasting dish. It was the big wooden drums I used to play. It was didgeridoo I used to play. It was melodica. It was everything. And
you can play a didgeridoo?
Yeah, easy.
Have you got one?
I can't circular breathe, but I do. I have a cardboard tube.
Right.
It works. But perception's key in that sense. Everybody has an outlet. Well, you could do like throat singing, the Tibetan monk style.
Yeah, well, I can do Tuvian throat singing.
Wow.
Oh, excuse me. Been a little while. Oh, you see, it's been a little while. But anyway, I can.
Shit, that's actually awesome.
If I do it a little bit more.
At the back.
Yeah.
So cool.
God, you're making me think, God, you've got to practice that, Charles.
I mean, that's the whole kind of perception boundary I have with it. So naturally for me it's music. So this drum, one in particular, I actually brought from AliExpress.
Right.
So it's a Hularu steel tongue drum, and from the site, it is a lot more expensive than AliExpress. So I recommend AliExpress to everyone when it comes to these drums. Not the handpins. They are horrible from AliExpress, but the tongue drums, definitely, they are good.
And they're tongue drums because they've got tongues.
Got the tongues, yeah. Yeah, so that's...
Well, give us a play. Let's see.
Do I need to...
If you bring that a little bit over this way and then tilt from there. Oh, it won't go round. So what you'll do is this. I'll show you. Here we go.
Of course.
There we go. And I'll just...
Maybe a little bit lower.
Yeah. So we should be able to hear. Just give a little sound test. Yeah, that sounds pretty good. I'll just put it a little... This feels like you could actually sing to that. It's beautiful. Carry on there. It's so lovely. Very mesmerizing. Focus is gorgeous. Round of applause, everybody. That was pretty unbelievable. That is actually really cool. I've seen you play it before, but I think just now, I felt even better about what you were playing than I did when I heard you before. Because there's a couple of things that have happened here that aren't, that weren't here. It was the purity. This is an acoustically treated room.
Oh, of course.
And so I'm hearing completely pure drum, and I'm the one with the headphones on. So I'm getting, through a really good mic, pure drum. I don't know if anybody felt what I felt. Yeah. What's his TikTok? What's his TikTok?
Oh, Kosibin.
Yeah, so
hold on.
Here, I'll just let me just find. I'll get him for you, unless you can go in yourself.
Yeah, my phone's really laggy at the moment.
At Tree. Is it underscore?
Yeah.
Underscore. And just spell your last name.
KOS.
KOS.
ABIN.
ABIN. There you go. Tree Kosibin.
Yep, awesome.
Brilliant. And this is really, really cool. Hey, Blaze, lovely to have you here. Hi, Keith, lovely to see you. Hey, Caesar, lovely to see you too. Kane, Astapol, and Sinna Salameti, thank you. So look, just to let everybody know, I'm sorry about the sound on my microphone, by the way. We've had about a 2-hour podcast, I don't know how long you guys have been here, but this is the first of my lives, and this was the first time I've actually sat down with Tree. And I don't know how long, once again, I don't know how long you've been here, but we've been discussing about Tree's life, the abuse that he faced, what he was witness to, some of the most terrible and horrific things I've ever heard anybody describe, and his pathway to getting to a point where he now, on his channel, is working towards relieving others of their stress through the playing of this instrument, through conversation. And I really, really wanted to share Tree's transformation because often, and we were talking about this just earlier on, we were talking about, the idea of blaming somebody else for the way we are. Yeah. But what I find, move up a little bit. There we go. What I find in your story, even though you have those that I would consider are the culprits, those that are culpable of the greater sins, your language doesn't seem to be language of blame.
No, well,
and that tells me something.
It's neutral.
Yes, that's right. It's neither. It's a bit like me and how I view life. It's not I'm pessimistic about life, but nor am I optimistic about life. I see life as a series of objectives and journeys and narratives that I'm in the process of doing and being.
Yeah.
And that way there's a balance. That doesn't mean to say I don't feel joy, and it doesn't mean to say I don't feel sadness, but the expectation isn't there for sorrow to be the larger player or exuberance to be the larger player. They play, and I observe them as an actor in life. But what I wanted to get to was the fact that you, through not just the instrument, through meeting your wife and the most beautiful romantic thing, both being on the street and saying, hey, shall we fucking get married, I think it's brilliant. You're showing transcendence. The pain can be there, but you transcend it through you're enveloping yourself in the transcendent.
That's basically what I was trying to get at with the whole perception thing.
Yes.
We all have an outlet, and for me, it just so happens to be music. For some it's drawing, for some it's whatever it is.
Right.
And I think that's so crucial. For anybody to move on from anything, they need an outlet. So sorry to go back to the whole TikTok thing.
No. I think it's really important.
When I'm on TikTok, another thing I try to encourage is my messages. They're not set up so only friends can message me. Anybody can message me.
Yeah.
And I accept messages from anyone. Should anyone ever need to talk about anything, they can message me and they can tell me anything. I'm not going to sit there and belittle them or judge them or anything. I'm more going to understand.
Right.
And if I don't understand what they say, I will make myself understand.
Right.
I'll ask questions or I'll get involved. And I do this solely to help them, because if they were to go to a counselor, they would get talked to like this, and then they would be told, "How is your day? How can we help? How much money do you have?"
Right.
And that's basically it. Like all calm and false, and then, "Oh yeah, hey, how's your bank account looking?" And that's where it is. Whereas I'm a firm believer that if people talk to other people like we are, like, that's how it should be.
Well, one of the reasons why we need therapists in any form today, I mean, I believe I'm a therapist in singing tutor, whatever, but I believe it's because of the disintegration of the nuclear family. So I didn't know any of my grandparents, but I would have loved. I know my father's father, my grandfather on my father's side, and the reason why I know I would have loved him is because of the stories of my father. He passed away in 2014, but a child, the 5-year-old, the 8-year-old, needs the grandfather and the grandmother, which we don't usually have much of, because we've separated them from the sum, and we put them in homes, and we have an expectation that they'll live out their days without causing us much problem. But in actual fact, I would have loved to have gone to my grandfather and say, my mum or my dad, they said blah, blah, blah to me. And I often envisage my grandfather saying, "Don't worry, son. I know. My wife gave birth to him. And I know for a fact that, he can be a funny lad, your father. But you've got me. Now let's go down and play some football."
See,
that's incredible therapy.
And I think that's how family's meant to be.
That's right. Now, it's ideologic in some ways. It's ideal. It's kind of somewhat utopian. But it happens. I've had conversation with people who say, "Oh, my granddad was brilliant. He used to say, 'Don't listen to your mother. Look, you can have a couple of chocolates. Don't tell her.
Yeah.
Then come and tell me what's the problem.'" So friend has a couple of chocolates with his granddad. The boy tells, "Oh, yeah, well, I came home and she told me about this and that, and I told her about my homework, and it was rubbish." And he says, "Oh, yeah, homework, eh? God, yeah. Bloody awful, isn't it?" There we go. Grandfather being empathetic towards the child. The child gets a chance to tell their story.
That's beautiful.
But don't put it away.
Okay.
Because you're going to actually play us out.
Oh, okay.
I've got it planned. But I think if I could do that, I want to be that grandfather. I want to be that grandfather that says, I know my daughters, and I know, telling you off, but let's go for a walk. And we take my son or daughter and we go for a walk, and we'll go down to the park and we say, "Hey," we'll go to the beach and say, "Let's build a sandcastle." Yeah. And that's the therapy. Sitting there in what I call, the Asian squat,
Oh, yeah.
Deep in the sand. Sitting in that lovely Asian squat, making sandcastles, if I'm still that flexible. And just, gosh, it makes me want them to have babies now. Anyway. Did you want to finish off by saying anything? Or?
Just thanks for this opportunity, really. It's been awesome.
It's my honour. It's my honour. I mean, there's no podcast without somebody else sitting in that chair. So thank you.
Yeah, no, it's really cool. It's good to actually be able to say what I've said without being kind of interrupted or judged or whatever it is. So,
I'm sure I did some interrupting.
It was the right kind of interrupting.
So what I'd like to do, we'll do another one of these at some point. I imagine because it's quite fresh, let's not leave it any longer than 3 months.
Yep.
Okay, it's fresh. And those that are here have this understanding of who Tree is in his trauma. But we need to fill in the marriage bit and back to the visiting of your father. We need to fill in that bit and we need to get to that growth. There's a bit of a gap there. And I'm excited about the idea that the next discussion will be the narrative of, well, music's been part of my life, and then you can give us more of a musical journey whilst incorporating that other traumatic. But I think this is life-giving, and I can't believe I just spat on you, but don't worry, it's holy water. Bless you, my son. Anonymous Padre. No, so why don't you play us out? And we're getting... Oh, hello, Shona. Thank you, Shona, for those likes. Go ahead, play us out. Right. Thank you ever so much, Tree, for being with us. And thank you, everybody, for being here. We're going to go for about 2 minutes now. Listen to this, and then we are going to fade out. Go for it. We'll just point that mic like that. Yeah, that's right. Give it a good little shove down. There we go. Ladies and gentlemen, Tree Kosibin. Tree Kosibin. This is Tree Kosibin. According to this, you're still playing. Well, thank you. Thank you. Everybody who's come today. Let me just simply say a big thanks to Tree. I hope you've all enjoyed this. This was just the beginning, ladies and gentlemen. This is the first live podcast I've ever done. If you go to my link tree, you can see the Purple Chair interviews or the Purple Chair experience, and you can, I'm going to upload this video in widescreen so you can see more of us and with much better sound quality than you get through a stream. So I'm very grateful that you've all been here. Thank you so much. Thank you once again to Tree. Please, by all means, follow Tree and share with others this man's work. If you see his TikTok, Tree_Kosibin, if you see this, please go ahead and do that. His work is vital amongst our ever-increasing agitation towards one another in a divisive narrative. And we need people who are talking, even if their languages are somewhat different psychologically. There is a necessity for us to bridge the gap. So Tree is one of those individuals that does that through music, through his beautiful calmness. Beautiful calmness.
Thank you.
And you were like freaking out. That's me. But please follow Tree. Thank you ever so much, everybody. It's been lovely having you here. And once again, Tree, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Take care, man.